Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Principal Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk with the best consultants in their niche. Today we have one for sure, Matt Dixon, one of the most influential voices in modern B2B sales and professional services growth. Best known as the co-author of The Challenger Sale, Matt has spent decades researching what actually drives business development, performance, insight consulting, legal, accounting, and advisory firms. In this episode, Matt discusses how client buying behavior is changing, why traditional relationship selling is breaking down, and what top-performing rainmakers are doing differently in today's AI-driven consulting market. Matt, welcome.
Hey, John, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Great. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a long time. I would describe myself as kind of a business development anthropologist or sales anthropologist. So I'm a researcher by training. I'm in the consulting business now. I co-founded a consulting and training business a number of years ago called DCM Insights. But my role is really that of researcher and kind of storyteller and speaker. I'm a trained researcher, and I kind of bring research-based methods to try to understand the answers to some of those questions you just mentioned, like how is client buying behavior changing, and what does that mean for consultants and professionals out in the market today?
Okay, and what drew you into consulting in the first place?
Yeah, good question. I think I found that my interest in, there's so much data out there, but there's also so little analysis and research being done, proper research. There's a lot of conventional wisdom, there's a lot of personal opinions, but there's very little research being done, which is a shame because there's so much data out there in the professions, and not just consulting, but in law, in accounting, in investment banking, in executive search, it goes on and on. And this is a time of really kind of turbulent change. So we did this research, which went into the book, The Activator Advantage, which I think we're going to talk about today, and that drew us into the consulting space. We had a lot of demand for teaching partners and teaching professionals how to do the things that our research surfaced, and so that was the genesis of our own consulting business.
Activator Advantage?
Yes, yep, you got it.
Yes, tell us about it.
Sure. Yeah. So we collected data on 3,000 or close to 3,000, just shy of 3,000 partner level professionals across consulting, law, accounting, investment banking, public relations, and executive search. We had those partners go through about a 45 or 60-minute behavioral survey. It was really designed to understand all the ins and outs of how they develop client business. As we know, in the professions, consultants, lawyers, they are doer sellers, right? So they're not full-time salespeople. They are executing client work, but they're also responsible for selling that work. Our study was really central, kind of laser focused on the selling part of being a professional. Now, what we also did to get an outcome variable in the study is we went to the 41 firms where these partners worked, and we asked the leaders of those firms to grade each one of those 3,000 professionals on a standard set of business development effectiveness questions. We kind of rolled the scores up, and we created an index. So then every one of the 3,000 partners had a personally assigned business development effectiveness score, and that allowed us to do a lot of really interesting analysis. There's two big things that came out of that. The first one is when you run a method called factor analysis, which I'm not going to bore your listeners with unless you want to get into it. And right now, people are like, why did I download this? And why am I going to hit the 10-second advance button, right? Flashbacks from college. But basically, it's a method, a fancy way of saying trying to find patterns in the data. And what we actually found was across 3,000 partners, each one of them could be statistically placed into one of 5 different business development approaches. We call these the 5 profiles of partners. That in itself was fascinating. But the second big surprise, the ones that most partners fall into, and we call those the confidant and expert approaches. And again, we can come back to those in just a moment. They actually may have been successful in the past, but are really lacking in their effectiveness in today's client buying environment. And there's this new profile we call the Activator, hence the name of the book, the Activator Advantage, that is really the select for business development profile. It's a very different approach to business development than what has been taught and kind of mentored to junior professionals in their careers over time. A kind of a departure from the old way of developing client business. And really kind of paints a very interesting path forward for consultants in a very different client buying environment.
Interesting. What specific problem are you helping your consulting and professional service firms solve today? And why does solving that problem matter so much to you personally?
Yeah, I think the big problem is growth, right? It's growth, but I think it's with a twist on growth. I think growth has always been a challenge or a priority for whether we're talking about solo consultants, individuals, all the way through to boutique and niche consultancies, all the way up to like the big four, right? And the MBB firms. This driving growth, driving organic growth has always been a paramount issue, and that's no different today. But I think the buying environment has actually really changed substantially. When I present this research, John, I always say, look, I think we've seen more changes in the ways that clients buy in the last 5 years than we've seen in the previous 100 years combined in this industry. The specific thing that's changed is that the buying environment has suddenly become dramatically more competitive. Clients have become much more fickle, and I would argue much less loyal to the firms and the partners they've hired in the past. In this industry, I think we've long known that one of the best ways to lock a client in for the long term is to deliver value, right, and build a deep relationship with that client. But what we're finding is that even when we do that, it's not a foregone conclusion. In fact, far from it, that the client will give us the next piece of work, that they'll hire us again. Now, keep in mind, these are clients we've delivered tremendous value to, who enjoy working with us. We built deep relationships with the client, with the client's team, and with the client's organization. And still, in today's market, there's a better than 50% chance that the client might go with somebody else. Now, why is that? I think a lot of that has to do with the rise of procurement and professional buying on the part of clients. But that's a long-term trend. Like that's something we've been monitoring for 20 plus years now. I think the more recent phenomenon is that clients are actually using AI increasingly to make the buying process more brutal for consultants. So imagine today's client. In the past, it was hard. If you had a consultant you liked working with, you'd go back to him again because it's a lot of work for a client to go out and find somebody else who has the capabilities and the credentials and the experience, right? But in today's market, you just go to Claude or to ChatGPT and you ask, hey, who's the best firm out there? Who's the best professional out there for this specific issue? And you get a laundry list of providers. Now, some of those may be the firms you've used in the past and that you're familiar with, but odds are that you're going to see some names on there you've never heard of before. Now, suddenly the door is open, right? Even though you've got this privileged relationship, this deep relationship with the client is now being guided to go talk to others. And the client is very much of the mindset that if it's easy enough for us to go shop the market and hear what other consultants have to say about the risks and opportunities we're trying to get after, why wouldn't I do that, right? I'm going to be caught flat-footed. You are at great risk if you assume the consultants you've used in the past have all the answers, right? You owe it to yourself and your company and your shareholders and your customers to always hear what others have to say. And today, it's so much easier for customers to do that. And not only that, but when they create their short list and say, hey, here are the 3 consultants that I'm convinced can do a good job on this project. Now, hey, Claude, help me create an RFP and let me force those consultants to compete on price. We interviewed a lot of clients as part of this research, and the number of them who said it's never been a better time to be a client because buying is so much easier. It's so much easier to scan the market, create the short list, and force them to compete on price. And that's a really troubling trend for consultants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who are your ideal clients today?
So, for us, it runs the gamut. I'd say our business, so we train on the Activator model. As the title of the book suggests, our programs are primarily delivered to partners, though we do deliver training programs at the pre-partner level as well. So whether you call those professionals associates or senior associates, or in consulting, we often go by the moniker of manager or senior manager, right? These are the people who are kind of knocking on the door of partner, but not quite there yet. But most of our work is with partners. I'd say about 75-80% of our training is with the partner community. I think the reason is pretty straightforward, that's the pain point that firms feel like we really need to get our partners moving out there in the market. We need to get them to sharpen the edge of their BD approach. But at the same time, we want to support those that next generation of partner, the people who are kind of rising through the ranks, so that when they make partner, they don't have that deer in the headlights moment where suddenly they go from executing work to now having to sell the work, and they've never been prepared to do it. So I'd say progressive firms are starting to think about that next generation as well. Now our business is probably about half law firms. The other half is we call the ACE segment: accounting, consulting, and executive search is where we do the other 50% of our business. And when we get into consulting, we're working with the MBB firms, we're working with the big four firms, but we're also working all the way down to kind of specialty, more boutique and niche providers. So think about like specialty engineering firms or economic consultancies, things like that are really in kind of these specialized areas of consulting. So it really does run the gamut.
You've built enormous authority through books, HBR articles, keynote speaking, and research. What worked best for growing your business and attracting the right clients?
Yeah, you said it just then, John. I think for us, it's interesting because in a lot of my career was spent in business to business sales research. So all those books you mentioned, the Challenger Sale was the first book we did. That was a study of business to business salespeople. The Activator Advantage is actually the first book we've written that was specifically about professionals, right? We're focused on consultants, lawyers, accountants, and the like. Really, just focused on the professional services industry. For us, as a business, we don't do any outbound selling. And I think it's interesting because while that works, I guess, with reasonable effectiveness, though one could argue waning effectiveness when you're selling tech solutions or you're selling manufactured products, to send cold outreach and emails and pound the phone and try to get time with buyers, that really doesn't work very well in professional services. Professional services buyers, or as I would say for us, right? So we're talking about managing partners, COOs, chairs, CEOs, chief business development officers, CMOs. That's who we sell our solutions to. Those folks don't really respond very well to cold outreach and cold calls. And so we found is the most effective way to get their attention is to do high-end, long-form content like the book or publications in HBR, run events, give them an opportunity to learn the research and to engage with us as a team. And then we kind of, as if you will, we kind of teach them into the sales funnel, right? Versus doing a lot of cold outreach. We just found that this kind of buyer in the space, again, doesn't have a lot of tolerance for that kind of approach, but they have a lot of appetite for learning new ideas. I mean, this is a very a hungry audience in terms of what's the most progressive thinking, whether that's how to develop client business, whether that's how to design professional comp plans for my partners, how to use AI in our business. There's a lot of appetite for great research. And when you do great research, you can always get a great audience together of top firm leaders. And then that creates commercial opportunity for us.
What do you think about podcasts as marketing tool for consultants?
For sure. Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm here with you, John. I mean, I think that there's so many different ways that people consume content today, right? Sometimes it's in a more traditional, I'm going to go buy the book or I'm going to listen to it on Audible or what have you. Sometimes people like the short form, so they're happier picking up a blog post or an HBR article. But sometimes people like listening. I mean, it's just the whole space. Podcasts have just exploded. When we wrote the Challenger Sale, that was 2011. I don't think podcasts even existed back then. They might have, but they were a rarity. But today it's like, there are a ton of them out there. And what's so cool is, we've gone out and we've really focused in on podcasts like yours that are really addressing or providing for the needs of the professional community, right? So the consultants out there, there are a lot of podcasts for lawyers, for accountants, for investment bankers and search professionals. And that we found has been fantastic because partners are very busy people, firm leaders are busy people, and it's very easy for them to consume content on the go. The podcasts provide a great way to do it.
Professional services sales cycles can be long and political.
Yeah.
What do you think the best rainmakers do differently when it comes to building trust and actually winning high-value engagements?
Yeah, so I think the core of there's a couple of things I would say. Maybe take a step back, John. In our programming, in our training program, in the book, we talk about the activator model, which has a lot of moving parts to it. It's about the behaviors and the mindsets and the habits and the key moments that matter in managing a client relationship. But if I were to elevate up to the highest level and provide the simplest answer to your question, I would say the best rainmakers are doing three things. The first one is that they commit to business development as a daily routine. Now, 80% of the professionals in our study told us they do business development when they get around to it. And that's kind of code for I don't do a lot of it, or I do it when I lose a big pitch or I lose a big client or my boss is putting pressure on me to get out there and hustle for work. Otherwise, I kind of let it fall by the wayside. And most consultants we talk to, they fall into this mindset, which again may have been fine 20, 30 years ago, but it doesn't really work very well today, which is doing great work is is the best way to develop client business. If I just do great work, if I just develop a great reputation, people will find me and reach out to me. And that again may have been true in the past, not so true anymore. So activators have a routine. They're always doing business development a little bit every single day to keep the wheels of progress moving forward on their book of business because they don't want to get caught flat-footed. Second, the second C, if you will, being an activator is connecting broadly and deeply. So activators are huge networkers. They're very active on LinkedIn, not so much sharing their point of view. They're not influencers, but they're engaged in LinkedIn as if it's the world's biggest business conference, right? They're liking and posting and resharing and commenting, and they're trying to get in the flow of the conversation. Now, activators will also tell you, look, I'm not going to sell a big engagement on LinkedIn. Nobody's selling anything on LinkedIn, but I might establish contact there. And here's the thing is that as a professional, yeah, I might get some leads through our website, or maybe our marketing team might pass along some people who filled out forms on the website and say, hey, I want to talk to this partner or this consultant on your team. But most of my paid client work is going to come from my personal network. And so activators are really, they spend a lot of time managing, prioritizing, and harvesting from their professional networks. They're also very active in terms of internal networking. So they know that the way you create a sticky client relationship is don't just sell what you can do, sell what your entire firm can do to the client, right? So bring together your colleagues, make introductions, collaborate to solve those biggest client issues. And when you do that, those become relationships that clients want to keep, right? Because those are sticky relationships. You're really embedded in the client organization, and it's a real cost to the client to pull up the tent stakes and go somewhere else. And then the last C is creating value proactively. So the number one complaint we heard from clients about consultants and about partners in general is that they don't hear from them often enough. And this is a real shock, I think, for partners, because many partners fall into this view of like, hey, I don't want to reach out to my client if they're not paying me, if I don't have a paid piece of work going on. If I reach out to them between paid work, it's going to come across as salesy, right? And no consultants want to be seen as salesy. Now, be very clear, clients don't like interactions that have no value. One client we interviewed called this the random act of lunch. Clients don't like that, right? If you do that with them once, you burn them once, they won't commit to that again. Like if you're just getting together with me to check in, or you're really just checking to see if I have more money to send your way, or more budget to send your way. But what clients will always make time for is the value added outreach. So if there's something whether it's about an opportunity we should be getting after, a risk that we're not aware of, a disruptive technology shift in our market, a change in the competitive landscape that we should be strategizing around. It's not just that I'm okay with you reaching out to me with those ideas. I expect you to do it. Clients told us very clearly, I am so heads down on my strategy, on what's going on in my company. The consultants I hire are going to talk to more people like me in a week than I talk to all year. So tell me what those people are getting after. What are the risks they're concerned about? I will always make time for that. And here's the thing, if you don't do that and your competitor does do it, don't be surprised if I go with them instead of you, even if your firm is better at addressing those needs than they are. They were thoughtful and helpful enough to proactively reach out to me. So I think to your point, the drumbeat or the heartbeat, if you will, of this activator model is this idea of paying it forward and being thoughtful and helpful with clients. One activator told me, and I love this quote, if I look at what pays my bonus and my comp this year, it's the billable work I'm engaged in right now with clients, the SOWs that I'm engaged in right now. But if I look at what pays my bonus and it drives my comp next year and the year after, it's a lot of the free advice I'm giving. It's a lot of that free perspective I'm offering in that constant flow of value, because that pays itself back in spades, right? Clients remember that. You're the one who brought the idea to them. Everyone else is waiting for you to reach out to them. I was thoughtful enough to bring the idea or the risk or the opportunity to you proactively. And not only that, but I shaped your understanding of it, ideally in a way that made you see me as the preferred professional to hire for this specific engagement.
Once a firm becomes a client, how do you make sure the relationship keeps growing over time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's two pieces. One for us, again, we're in the training business, so we're training partners and pre-partner level professionals on this activator approach. And there's really two things. I think the first one is it's got to be a great client experience. So, what we often see a group of partners, and we deliver our training in cohorts of like 20 partners. They'll come into the room, and oftentimes you see a lot of like crossed arms and eye rolls, and because these guys have been through sales training and they've generally had a really bad experience. I think largely because it's not about partners, it's about selling, and that's not exactly the job of a consultant. A consultant is a seller doer or a doer seller, depending on what ordering you like. But they generally see sales training as not really about them. So when we come in, and by the way, most consultants I think are of the mindset that they shouldn't have to sell. All I have to do is develop a great brand and reputation and do great work for clients. That is selling in professional services. And so you gotta reset their mindset, if you will. And there's a lot of work we do up front. One, to show them that this is a model based on what the very best people in their industry are doing, not salespeople, what the very best consultants are doing, the best partners. And then two, we really spend a lot of time breaking down that mindset that I don't have to sell and my clients will just reach out to me, and I can rest assured that those clients I've done a lot of great work for in the past will come back to me again. And resetting that mindset, hey, the market's changed and what got you here is not going to get you there. Then what we get into is, again, a lot of the practical application. How do I do those 3 C's at a very tactical level and bake it into my daily routine to drive a healthier book of business and a growing practice? So I think that's the first thing, is a great experience that leaves these partners saying, boy, I wasn't excited about getting signed up for this, but that was amazing. It was totally different than any other sales training I've gone to. It was expertly delivered, and it was about my world, not about sales, because they don't see themselves as salespeople. And then I think the second thing is the results, right? If firms don't see the results, especially when we're talking about consulting firms, it's a tough market out there. But if they don't see the ROI, they don't see the pipeline growth, they don't see the growing client relationships, they don't see themselves winning deals, they don't hear their partners coming back saying, I can do this. Like, I understand what it takes to be successful, and I'm seeing that success reflected back in my book of business, then they're not going to continue. So, we've been growing very rapidly, and so we've been fortunate to be able to deliver both those things: a great experience to partners and results that speak for themselves.
Where do you find yourself most personally challenged right now as a leader?
For me, personally challenging as a leader, I would say, it's probably finding great talent. We are very we talk to a lot of people who want to be facilitators for us. We have a global faculty of about 40 professionals around the world who deliver our training for us. And these are all contractors. So these are all people who have their own coaching businesses and leadership development businesses and consulting businesses, and then part of their time they spend working with us. We probably talk to 20 candidates for every one that we hire or accept, right? And we send through our certification program. It's just really hard to find people who understand commercial interactions, have the credentials to stand in front of a room of partners in a consulting firm or a law firm or an investment bank and have that credibility. Those are tough rooms, right? It's not your traditional sales trainers that are successful in that mode. Sometimes it's the exact opposite, right? These folks are intellectually curious. They're fantastic at thinking on their feet. They're great at bringing a room of very skeptical people with them on the journey and having them leave kind of fist pumping and saying that was great. And that takes a very particular kind of person. And so again, that's probably our biggest challenge, is really finding those people and then bringing them in and locking them into our bench.
Okay. Looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunity for research-backed business development and modern rainmaking over the next few years?
Yeah, I tell you that the one we're focused on right now, and it's a bit premature, maybe I come back in the future and we talk about the results of the new study we have going on right now. We're just collecting data on this now, is what are the very best partners doing to really institutionalize client relationships. So again, a lot of the firms we work with are trying to drive broad-based collaboration across their consultants. So, don't just sell your own capabilities to the client, bring the breadth of the firm to bear for the client, solve the highest order problems, the most complex issues, and that creates a very deep, entrenched, sticky relationship. But firms have really struggled with this. So we're really taking a deep dive into what are the best client lead partners doing from a collaboration standpoint to really bring their colleagues in and to create those really deep client relationships from a collaboration perspective. So stay tuned there. I don't know what the output will be. It's a little bit premature, but let's get back together in about 6 months' time and I'll have some answers for you.
Okay, great. Well, Matt, great conversation. If people want to find out more about you and see what you do, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me again, John. It's been great. So LinkedIn is a great place to get a hold of me. Tell me you heard me on the show. If you have a follow-up question, I'd be happy to try to answer that for you, or let's just get connected and enrich one another's networks. By the way, that is not an activator test, but if you heard me and you'd like to be connected, I'd love to be connected with you. And then second, check out our website. It's DCMinsights.com, and there's a lot more there. Research, podcasts, white papers, tools, templates you can download around this activator stuff, just to learn more about the activator research and also the training that we offer.
We'll put all the links in the description. Matt, thanks so much for coming on the Principal Podcast. We really appreciate your insights.
It's great being with you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you learned valuable strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.